Hey, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. Happy to have you back. It's Dave. Hope you're doing well. Great to be here with you on another episode of the How to Podcast series. Today, I want to talk to you about some bad advice that's been going out to podcasters from quote unquote experts in the field. I want to dispel some of these rumors and myths for you because they are causing some nightmares for new podcasters. So let's bring some clarity, some understanding to some of the most common bad advice suggestions for you as a new podcaster. Let's help you out here. Let's make things clear on the How to Podcast series. So we're all here together working on podcasts to share our voice to the world and then enter in, dun, 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 a guru, an expert who charges you a ton of money for the pleasure of their time and their opinion, which is usually maybe not worth that much. But anyways, they come in and they swoop in to save the day and help you, fledgling podcaster, as you navigate the newness of being a podcaster. And they come in and heavy-handedly lay down the law with some advice that you're thinking, well, maybe they're right. Well, maybe they're not right. Let's give you an example. Number one, that you should build your audience on Facebook as a podcaster. Let me think. Is Facebook free and open to everyone, or do you need an account? You need an account. Now, if you need an account to any platform, it's not free and open to everyone. Keep that in mind. So if you do not sign up for Facebook, you will never be a part of the community around that expert who's telling you that Facebook is where you need to be. If your podcast audience skews younger, there's a good chance that they're not going to be found on Facebook. So if you build your audience on any platform that requires you to log in or sign up or download an app to be a part of, you are building on rented land, and that is not a good place to start building community because you are at the mercy of whoever owns the keys to the kingdom of where you're building your community. The best place to build your community is on your own website, where you own everything. You own the interaction, you own the email signature, email people that sign up for your products, your services, your email blasts, your newsletter, blog. You own the party. You're not setting up in someone else's backyard, hoping you don't get kicked out. Facebook is amazing. There's a lot of great things in there, but you can also get hacked. You can also get your posts not being seen by your community. There's a lot of things that make me back away slightly from Facebook as a permanent home for my audience. Great for a rented vacation property, maybe, but not where I'm going to set up my home and do all of that. So a bad advice is to set up your community on anything that you don't own. That is a terrible way to start because you don't have control over your community. You don't have control over what happens. And you can get kicked off for any reason, hacked. Anything could happen. So be careful, okay? So if you hear somebody saying that there's only one way to build your podcast, and that's through Facebook, that person is not telling you the entire truth. It might have worked for them, for their podcast. Maybe their podcast audience skews older in demographics, in age. Maybe it works great for them, but it's not the only way, and it's not the best way. So please, create something where you, as the creator, have control over the back end of the platform. It's your audience, not Facebook's audience that's finding you. Okay, please So that's bad advice. Number 2 is the idea that if I just create a lot of content, that I'll be successful. Just make lots and lots and lots of content. The one thing that is true about making lots of content is you're going to get better, which is good. That's a good side. But quantity over quality does not lead to success. If you want to double your downloads in a week, all you have to do is create 2 episodes instead of creating 1. You have officially doubled your audience, and somebody's going to charge you hundreds of dollars to hear them say that exact thing. True, you will double your audience with 2 episodes instead of 1. That's a fact. Because the 5 people that listened to your first episode come back for your second episode, you now have 10 listens because you've just doubled your production. But that does not mean that you have doubled your audience. You've doubled your listens. Quantity over quality does not lead to success for the majority of podcasters. Quality will bring your listeners back over quantity. This advice prioritizes volume over quality of content, and this can be harmful for your podcast reputation. If I have a terrible podcast and I put out 7 podcasts a week and it's all terrible every week and I never improve, my podcast will not grow and I'm hurting my podcast. Better to do less and do it better and improve and work on your content than just to blast out content that you're not happy with and your audience doesn't like. That's when you're going to run into trouble. So number 3, don't worry about promoting your podcast. That whole thing from the movie, if you build it, they will come. Maybe, but probably not. Promoting your episodes and promoting your content is a great way to do this. And I'm going to divert from all of the people who are passionately in love with Instagram. I would much rather promote my podcast on a podcast than on a social media platform. Again, we've talked about this many times on the show. Go back into the other episodes, you'll see that you're asking someone on a social media platform to stop being on the platform, come over here to where the podcasts are and listen to my show. That's a big ask for people who don't listen to shows or just don't listen to podcasts, don't know what you're talking about. And the people who follow you on your Instagram page are most likely already listeners. So you don't need to tell them to come over to your podcast because it's already on their phone. They follow you and every episode shows up on their phone. So they already know you have a new episode. I'm not saying that Instagram or social media is a bad thing, but it can't be the only thing. Coming on a podcast and talking directly to podcast listeners is the best way, from my perspective, and testing this, to get a bigger audience because people get to hear you on a podcast. They're already podcast listeners, so we don't have to teach them how to listen to a podcast. Come over to a podcast, get on the show. I'm inviting you to come here on the How to Podcast series, share your podcast journey, whether you have 1 episode or 1,000, come and share your story, talk about podcasting, and promote your show to the listeners who listen to this show. I want to hear you come on the show and share your journey. That's how you gain listeners. People hear your show and go, I love that show. I love that host. I can't wait to listen to their show. Come on. Come on over here. Be on How to Podcast. And I would love to have you and promote your show. That's how it works. Okay? Number 4, you'll hear people say that don't worry about your podcast niche. Cover a wide variety of topics. Don't worry about getting focused, laser focused on a topic. Just go wide, go broad. So there's a problem here. If you don't have a clear niche that attracts a more engaged audience, you're going to talk to a lot of people, but not at depth. You're not going to go deep with people and they're going to have a deep connection with you as a host because your topic is surface level. You want to go to a level where people feel connected with you as a host and connected with your topic. So go niche. And again, I'm not saying niche. Go niche because it's spelled N-I-C-H-E, not N-I-T-C-H. Go niche and focus in on the audience that's going to fall in love with your content. You have an amazing story. You have an amazing topic. You have life experience that will help so many people. So go narrow. And you're like, Dave, but I want to talk to everyone. Here's an example. Dad Space podcast that I do. It's over at dadspace.ca if you're interested. Nice plug, right? Dadspace.ca is the website. And I host the Dad Space podcast. Podcast for dads by dads. And I created the podcast to speak to men about being good husbands, partners, fathers, community members, and to be good to themselves as men. And this podcast will be a year old as of Father's Day 2023. I created the episodes and all the podcasts around dads, and for the majority of my audience are female. Wait, what? Yes, they're female listeners listening to my dad podcast. Okay. So even though I'm niche down and I'm focused on my audience, I know who my listener is. My listener is dads. That does not mean that I've excluded women from coming to the podcast to listen to the show. I'm still focused on the men. I'm still talking to the men, but my listening audience is broader than my niche. So don't worry if you niche down to a point where you feel a little uncomfortable that I'm only talking to a small group of people. That's the engagement you want as a podcaster. So don't just do the sports show. Don't just do the golf sports show. Maybe do the mini putt show, because that's all I can do is mini putt. I would listen to the mini putt show more than I'd listen to the golf show, more than I would listen to the sports show, because I love mini golf and mini putt. That's fun for me. The windmill, the little water trap, and yeah, it's not golf, Dave. Yeah, to me it is, because I don't golf. So there you go. The mini putt show. There's a podcast. Create it. I'll listen to it. That would be really cool. So that's what I mean. Go niche. Go down to the topic that serves you think you can talk about the most and the community you can serve. Do it. And you will find your audience waiting for you. Number 5, you don't need good equipment. You can just use the basics you have and never improve. Never go up. Okay. I tell everyone as well, you can start with a basic setup, a phone, whatever you have, and start podcasting. Yes, 100%. But as you grow and as you get more and more listeners and as things progress, you need to consider, how can I make my show better? Or be satisfied with a plateaued level, and you're not going to grow much further than that. So maybe 1 year into this and you have 50 plus episodes and you're thinking, Dave, I really would like to up my game and sound better on the microphone. People give me feedback and they can't hear me when they're driving in the car. So maybe I need to upgrade. Yeah, you do. You should probably think about that. But if you're starting your show looking at a blank page and you don't know what to do, you don't have a lot of money to start free. Yes, get a free hosting site. Yes, start with your phone. Do whatever you can to get your message into the world. Please don't let something stop you, and don't let a guru tell you you're wrong for starting with the basics that you have. You're a single mom. You've got 2 kids to feed and you work 40 hours a week and you're going to do a podcast. Do you have $200 for a microphone? That seems a little absurd when you're starting. But as you grow and as your podcast gets better and as you get feedback and people ask you to maybe make it sound better, make it sound clearer, and you get that feedback from your audience, start looking at investing and spending a little bit of money to make your show better. But you don't need that at the beginning, okay? Number 6, long episodes are better than short episodes. Okay. Episode length should not be based on your content, target audience, and engagement levels. Sometimes shorter episodes are way more effective. What I've listened to is, I listen to a lot of podcasts about podcasting, and they'll have like multiple topics in one show. And sometimes the majority of the topics they cover mean nothing to me. They're talking about a microphone that they put two microphones side by side and they're like, do you hear the difference? And I'm like, no, this is boring. I don't care about this stuff. Let's move on to something more. So I find myself skipping through their episodes or bypassing them completely because they're just focused on the wrong things for what I'm listening to as a listener. So having a long episode, you don't need the Joe Rogan 4 or 5 hour podcast episode where you fall asleep halfway through. The length of your episode should be the length of your content. So whatever you're talking about, and if you can do it in a short amount of time and a concise amount of time, that's more important than rambling or going down different rabbit holes that have nothing to do with your topic. Make your listeners a podcast that is concise and honors their time. That's it. And if it's 35 minutes one week, 32 minutes the next week, an hour the following week, as long as the content is valuable and your listeners are engaged and you're meeting that need, that's all you need to worry about. You're going to hear people say, don't worry about your analytics, your numbers. Just focus on creating content. Now, I kind of agree with this statement and I kind of don't agree with this statement. Ignoring your analytics completely prevents you from understanding your audience and making better decisions and improving. So if you look at your stats through your hosting site and you notice that after the 5-minute mark, everybody just seems to leave. Nobody listens to the end of your 20-minute episode. They all stop at 5. Play the episode, look at the 5-minute mark, and what happened there? What is it about your show that people just said, meh, and fix that? You won't know that information if you never look at your stats. So I hear experts go on and on and on about, I never look at my stats. I have no idea. That's not a good idea, people. It's really not a good idea. You need to know what's happening so that if there's a problem, like for example, your podcast does not have any plays on Apple, and you sent your podcast to Apple as part of your setup, maybe your podcast isn't on Apple for some reason. Maybe there's a problem. And you need to look into it and fix it so that your audience can find you. Know your stats. Understand your stats. And if you have any questions about how to read your stats, reach out to me, howtopodcast.ca. We can look at them together and I can give you some feedback and let you know. And lastly is for interview podcasts. If you have an interview podcast and your guest comes on your show, I heard one person say that they never, ever put the name of their guest in the episode title. They only put the content because the podcast is for the listener, not for the guest. And I'm whoa, wait a minute. If somebody comes on my show and gives me their time, I want them to have an episode that they feel excited to promote. And their name needs to be in there because that's a searchable word, a searchable name through Google. You want the name of your guest in the title of your show, whether you start with the content of the show in the episode title and then the name of your guest, or the name of your guest and then the kind of the context of the title or the episode in the show title, the episode title. Put that in there. Your guest will benefit and you will benefit because their audience is looking for their name. Even if they're not well known, their audience is searching them on Google. You want to show up there. And if you don't have the name of your guest in the title, which is a searchable field, why would you not do that? So if your guru is telling you don't do that, time for a new guru. It is time for a new guru. That person is not serving you. And whatever they think is a benefit of not having the guest name in the podcast title, I can't figure that out at all. That's just a head scratcher. Please be careful. Okay? So again, let's run through the list quick before we go. Facebook is the best place to build your community? No. Quantity over quality is more important? No. Don't worry about promoting your podcast? No. Don't worry about your podcast niche. No. You don't need good equipment. No. Your lengthy episodes are always better. No. Don't worry about your analytics. No. And don't put the name of your guest in the title of your episode. Say it with me. No. These are some ideas of what's going out there right now. And people are charging a lot of money to sit in and get this kind of information given to them. And then people go out and execute on this, and then they're not happy with the results. Your podcast does not have to make money. You don't have to turn your podcast into a business. All of these people that are out there promoting these things, I believe, are hurting new podcasters. I talk to a lot of podcasters that just want to get on the mic and be a podcaster. They don't want all this other stuff. They don't want to worry about all this other things. They just want to be a podcaster. I know one podcaster just wants to create a living legacy of their voice and their thoughts for their family, for the future. That's it. They don't care if they make a penny. But they want to create something that's got some legacy, some life to it. If that's you, I want you to know that you don't have to go down the path that everyone is trying to sell you something. Everybody has something for you to buy. That's not the idea. And if you need help with your podcast, that's why I'm here. That's why I create this show where there are other podcasts about podcasting. What I feel is different is I'm not here to judge you for whatever you choose to do with your podcast. I'm here to coach. I think that you can start for free. I think you can progress. I think you should practice before you start. And you shouldn't have to spend a lot of money to get your show off the ground. If you need help with that, howtopodcast.ca. Make sure you check out, if you have an Amazon device, that now you can get us as the Daily Briefing with the Daily Dave right there as one of your daily briefing options through your Amazon Alexa device. Definitely check that out. Would love to be a part of your day every day. howtopodcast.ca. And thank you for checking out some bad advice for new podcasters.